In this episode of Brainpower, we are going to explore prompt fundamentals. Let's go ahead and jump in. Hello, everyone. It's Josh. Thanks for showing up for another edition of Brainpower. Today, we're going to get really basic and talk about prompting and how it works in large language models like ChatGPT, Bard, and Claude. So, today's episode, we are going to start with some very simple prompts and then build them up and talk about the reasons why you would want to go in and modify your prompts with additional information to get back better results. Now, if you're following along at home, this is actually a recording. Typically, I will do this show live, but because of prior commitments, you're now watching a recording, which is happening on January 19th, 2024. Okay. But you could still follow along with me if you have a large language model open up like ChatGPT. Today, I'm going to be using GPT 3.5 model. So even the free model you can use here today. Or if you want to use Microsoft Copilot, Bard, Claude, whatever your flavor of a large language model is, you can go ahead and follow along with the prompts. Also, I will be posting additional content to support these episodes. They are not up yet, but if you go to joshcavalier.ai/brainpower or joshcavalier.com/brainpower, either way, you will be able to download handouts to the episodes. Not up yet, but coming very soon. So you may want to check it out over the weekend, right? Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump into prompt fundamentals. The first thing I want to talk about is how a large language model works. There's really two things that are incredibly important when it comes to a large language model. The first one is compute power, right? So you need to have the computational power to drive the large language model to give you results in an appropriate period of time. If you've worked with ChatGPT, you understand that there are differences between the speed of 3.5 and 4. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, the data, right? So the inputs are incredibly important. What information or corpus of data was used to train the model? Once you have that information, what guardrails are in place with that information? And in regards to ChatGPT and the 3.5 and 4 models, humans were used to help train the model and the responses that were coming back, again, to put protections in so that it isn't the Wild West and you can really ask it anything that you want. I know that when I first started working with ChatGPT, you're going to see this in a moment, but I have a control statement that I use when I prompt, how do I cook a smoked potato salad? Well, when I first started prompting, I was asking it, how do I smoke a potato? And it thought I was really trying to smoke the potato like a cigarette and wouldn't allow me to do it. So yes, these models are trained and they are based on probability. I know that for some of you, when you're working with ChatGPT, it feels like a Google search or it's grabbing the information from the internet. And that's not the case at all. You have to keep in mind that we are working with a vector database. And everything that the model was trained on are just points of information. And so when you type in a prompt, there are words that are coming back, and it's all based on probability. Now, what I want to do is go ahead and show you an example here. And if you have ever watched The Price is Right, my gosh, I hope that you at least caught one episode of The Price is Right. You have probably seen the Plinko game. And the Plinko game is when they have a chip and the chip drops down and it's going to go ahead and, hit the bottom of the board with an amount. So in this edition of the Plinko game, this is the probability example of a prompt in ChatGPT or in really any large language model. And you'll notice that I have a prompt over here on the left-hand side that says, as I cross the street, I notice from out of nowhere a huge what? Like, what's going to come up next in regards to the response from ChatGPT? Well, based upon probability, if I use the word black or if I use the word huge, the next word could be dog, it could be black, it could be rain, it could be bird. All these various different options are possible. And again, it's all based on probability. Now, some words have higher probability than others. And in this instance, dog. So if I get a response back from ChatGPT, from out of nowhere, a huge dog was running towards me. Again, that could be completely different based upon various factors and what the model comes back with. And so if you have worked with ChatGPT and you're wondering, well, why am I getting a different response from the same prompt? Well, this is the reason why. Okay. Again, probability kicks in, and all it takes is a single word or a different word to appear to give you a completely different result. All right. So now would be the time that you would want to open up ChatGPT or whatever large language model you're working with. And I'm going to put some prompts in here. Again, you can type these prompts in if you want, or once the documents are uploaded, you could download the sheet and copy and paste it from the worksheet. So this concept I first want to talk about is a free-form prompt versus a structured prompt. If you take a look at the prompt over on the left-hand side, you could see that it's just simply sentences. It's just like plain language to the model that you're giving it within the prompt. Over on the right-hand side is a structured prompt. I'm not going to get into that today, but there are some advanced techniques that you can use to get a more refined response with additional information within the prompt. For today, because we are talking about prompt fundamentals, we just want to keep it simple and begin with a free-form prompt just by writing sentences. All right. So today we are going to be working with a learning objective. And learning objectives are extremely important if you're an instructional designer. Again, just giving focus to the instructional content that you are creating and making sure that it's very specific and measurable and that you have guidance towards those objectives. Again, whether it's knowledge, skill, attitude, behavior, whatever the case may be. So that is the topic for today, is creating a learning objective, but we're going to do it in ChatGPT. All right. So now out of the gate, let's just go ahead and open up ChatGPT and just start with a very simple request. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to ChatGPT. And again, it's the 3.5 model here, right? So it's not the 4, it's the free model, so that's fine. And now we're going to give it a very simple prompt. Now, remember, I do have a control statement that I use. So I'm going to add that in here. And so for this prompt, I'm going to go ahead and say, create a list of learning objectives to cook a smoked potato salad. Seems like it's going to work. I mean, there's nothing crazy about this prompt. It's just a simple request. When you create a prompt and you give no examples or additional information about that prompt, this is what we call a zero-shot prompt. Okay, what we're doing is we're leaning really hard on the model to, again, we hope that learning objectives was trained in the model somewhere, right? If it wasn't, you're going to get back really horrible results. But with 175 billion parameters in the 3.5 model and over 1 trillion parameters in the GPT-4 model, odds are learning objectives and its definition are in there. But now you're going to see the results that are going to come back and how we are going to coax the model to give us better results as we prompt. So out of the gate, let's go ahead and try this simple prompt. Create a list of learning objectives to cook a smoked potato salad, and let's let it rip and see what happens. All right. So, one of the first things that I see here with these learning objectives is, one, it does give me many different bits of criteria about this smoked potato salad. If I move back up to the top, you can see that the topics include safety precautions, selecting ingredients, potato preparation, smoking techniques, and so on. But the language in here, it could be way better. Things like, or words like learn and understand, that doesn't really give me anything specific about the task at hand as far as its measurement, right? And so I'm looking for some learning objectives, again, that are very specific, that are measurable, achievable, result-oriented, time-bound, if it's a specific task, and I want more detailed learning objectives. So, I mean, this is a good start. Actually, it's pretty impressive how it has all these different criteria in here listed. Okay, so not too bad. Now, for this particular exercise, I am going to create a brand new chat for each prompt. And the reason for that is I don't want any kind of influence from a prior prompt. When you're prompting in ChatGPT, you have to keep in mind that when you use words in a prompt and then you get a result back, all of those words, your prompt and the return result, are going to influence the conversation. The words that are in there and related words have a higher probability of showing up. So I want to, again, for this exercise, create zero-shot prompts every single time so you could see the difference between the results. Now, if I were to go ahead and attempt to ask it and coax it towards better results in here, I could do that in the same conversation. This is what we call a prompt chain. But again, we want to remove that and just see with the zero-shot prompt what we get by modifying our prompts each time. All right, so let's go back. Now I want to go ahead and create a brand new conversation. And this time we are going to add in here a role. We're going to add a role to the prompt. And in this case, it's going to be act like an instructional designer. Now, when we're talking about, adding or, modifying a prompt, in this case, by adding a role, the words instructional designer beside themselves is going to influence the quality of the information coming back. just because there are words related to instructional designer that deal with learning objectives. Hopefully that's trained that way in the model. But because, these models are trained on all kinds of information on the internet, odds are that relationship is there, right? So again, we are now going to add a role in here and take a look at the results. All right, so we'll go back over to ChatGPT and we'll modify the prompt in here and say, act like an instructional designer, create a list of learning objectives to cook a smoked potato salad. And let's take a look at the results. All right. Well, very interesting. It looks like we have objectives in here and it's going to go in and give us certain outcomes. So we do have some modifications of the learning objective by the end of the lesson. Okay, that's good. Um, Learners will be able to identify and gather all necessary ingredients for making a smoked potato salad. All right, not too bad. I mean, we could be better here with the learning objective. But again, we can still see language in here. Learners will understand. All right, these are a little bit better, but we can continue to modify our prompt and to get better results in there, right? And we want to continue again with our experimentation and building up until we have extremely good quality learning objectives. So the next item here that we want to talk about is the task itself. Now, I mean, you can keep it simple in regards to the task, but the more information, the more details that you give about the task is going to give you better results. So let's go ahead and go back and we're going to add some additional details to the task and take a look at the results from ChatGPT. So back over we go. We're going to create a brand new chat. And for this particular prompt, we'll keep in there, act as an instructional designer, create a list of learning objectives to cook a smoked potato salad that is visually appealing and tastes fantastic to your guests. All right, so there is the prompt. And I apologize for not switching the screen, but there it is. Now that you have it, let's run it and see what we get. Okay, so now we have each, bit of criteria in here, and we have identify and select key ingredients, explain the role of each ingredient, demonstrate safe and efficient knife skills, describe, select. But you can still see we still have like understand in here. I'm looking for better verbs than that. But these are getting better. All right, you can see that, if we actually could combine some of these bullet points together into one sentence, we probably would have some decent learning objectives, again, depending upon the criteria in here. All right, so there's that. But again, the additional words of visually appealing and taste fantastic is going to influence the criteria and the information within those learning objectives. All right, now let's take a look at this last bit of information here. So one additional thing that you can add to a prompt, in addition to the task, are very specific instructions. And so in this example, it says learning objectives are only one sentence. Learning objectives contain a goal, behavior, criterion, and conditions. Now, depending upon where you learned how to write a learning objective, it could vary depending upon, again, what you are looking for in that learning objective. Now, in our prompt today, we are going to use the SMART, which is specific, measurable, achievable, result-oriented, and time-bound criteria, or the description of a learning objective. And so that's what we're going to be using here today. And those are going to be our detailed instructions for the learning objectives. So back over to ChatGPT we go. We are going to create a brand new chat. And for this last prompt, let me go in and grab that prompt and paste it in here. Act like an instructional designer. Create a list of learning objectives to cook a smoked potato salad that is visually appealing and tastes fantastic to your guests. Learning objectives are specific, measurable, achievable, result-oriented, and time-bound. Learning objectives are only one sentence. So those are our detailed information. And, it really doesn't matter what task you are trying to perform within ChatGPT. The role, the task, and the detailed instructions alone, if you add those items in there, are going to give you fantastic results. Okay. And you'll notice that again, as we've built this prompt up and we've added that additional information in there, we have gotten back better results. Now, it should be interesting here when we run this prompt, especially the time specific. I think you're going to see in these learning objectives that there's going to be time values associated with some of these tasks or some of these learning objectives. Well, let's check it out and see if it happens. So back we go to ChatGPT. Let's go ahead and let's run this. Yeah. So we definitely have instances where time is now a factor. By the end of this cooking lesson, learners will be able to identify and gather the necessary ingredients for smoked potato salad. Within 15 minutes, learners will be able to properly wash, peel, and dice potatoes, ensuring uniformity in size. After following the provided instructions, learners will be able to prepare a flavorful marinade for the potatoes consisting of measurable quantities of herbs and spices. You get the idea. Well. So now we have some decent learning objectives in here. You could see that verbs like understand and learn and even describe are not even in there anymore. And we have some decent learning objectives that we can then use in our project. So hopefully today, this gives you a really good idea of how to use prompts. First, by just going in and requesting or having a conversation with ChatGPT, but then building up the prompt by adding a role of any professional. It doesn't have to be an instructional designer, right? It could be an accountant, it could be a marketing professional, whoever out in the world is very proficient at that task, you can put in for the role. Then we go in and we have a very specific task in there, right? And you want to be detailed with that. And any criteria or any specifics about that task. And in the case of the learning objective, we had those SMART criteria in there for the learning objective. You want to add that in there. And that's going to go ahead and give you a better result. So hopefully today you were able to go in and see how to create a prompt and build it up using role, task, and detailed instructions. I want to thank you for joining me today. Just a couple items here before we roll out. Again, you can find me up at joshcavalier.com or joshcavalier.ai. Also, if you want to go ahead and download or get access to some prompts, I do have 150 prompts right now. Eventually, within a few weeks, that's going to change to 250 prompts. But this link is going to work right now. You can just put your name and email in there, and you get access to a Notion site with 150 prompts for learning and development. And finally, you'll be able to go ahead and go to joshcavalier.com/brainpower and download the associated worksheet with these episodes. So with that, again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you here in the next episode. Take care.